Welcome to another Front-End Engineering Explained. So in the previous video, which I will link up in the description, the one that is if without if in CSS with has an nth child, something like that. I didn't make mistakes, so to say, but there's some things that I mentioned in there that when I shared it everywhere, I got this great feedback here on Mastodon from Demystified, who, by the way, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly or their name correctly. But either way, they make some incredible stuff around CSS. I'll link their profile up in the description. Highly recommended. But and there's a couple of things that they mentioned that I figured I'd make another video to just clear up some of these things. But this is going to lead to more videos. And the main topic of this one, by the way, is, as the title suggests, demystifying sibling count. Because it's the way I thought you used it isn't the way you use it. And it's... Let's go through it. So I'm going to get to that one last. So one thing I mentioned is, for example, when you're using the if function syntax, that you can't just throw in any arbitrary conditional in there. That still holds true. Excuse me. But the one thing that isn't exactly true is where I said, for example, I couldn't do card count greater than something. It was the style queries, the media queries, the support queries, but it didn't have a range syntax. So it was this exact match where it was like, if it's 5, then it would do a thing, or if it's 2, then it would do a thing. But I was like, well, what if I wanted to do greater than? Turns out, so there's this great article also that that Tamani wrote here on the Front-End Masters blog. Again, I'll link this up. But right at the bottom of this, I hope that doesn't flicker too much as I'm scrolling. Here, they mention that we will also be able to have a range syntax. And you can see that over here. So you can see where it's basically using a style query, and then it's looking up this I custom property, and it's saying, basically, I less than 0.75, And if you have a look here on GitHub, then this was opened by Miriam Suzanne, following on from a discussion over here. And here you can see stuff like padding greater than 1em. And here we have a custom property, primary color lightness greater than 80. So this range syntax is coming or might have landed in some places already. I had a look here at the bottom, and here's like some Chromium web platform test stuff. And when I went to this one, for example, here, then this is merged. So it might be in like a nightly or a beta or something. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't really tried it out yet exactly. But so that's the one thing I wanted to clear up. So let me close that out. Then the next one is, if you can hear a slight whining, one of the dogs is having a nightmare, I think, or a bit of a bad dream. Then the other thing that I mentioned is, so I had this syntax over here. So in here, I had this syntax, container has, and then I just put in like nth child 5, like that. And in this situation, it's probably safe to do that. But you recommended basically that you do the direct child selector to make sure that it only selects direct children and not any descendants. Also, I'll link this up. Here's a very nice tool here where you can like build up all these like really intricate nth child kind of selectors based on has. You can do between, at most, at least, exactly, all kinds of cool stuff. And by the way, at the bottom, here's a link here, how many elements your container has, which is really great also. And there's even more you can do with has and the various nth, last child, all these kinds of things. As I said, great content. So I'll link that up as well. that brings us to sibling count, which is actually the main topic of this. And they said here, so sibling count will not count direct child, but sibling. So if you apply it to container, you will get 1 because container is alone and not 5, the number of child. Yes, true. But we're going to walk through this a little bit, and I'm going to try and demystify this a little bit. So I think in the previous video, I mentioned the fact that sibling count and how I was using it actually was a little confusing to me, because normally in JavaScript, how I would think about siblings is, for example, if I said if I'm on this one, I say get previous element sibling, I would expect it to get this one, right? So these are siblings, the little ones. So these are all siblings of each other. But this is the UL's child element. So I found it a little confusing that it says sibling count, but then you use it on here. But once you understand it, it means exactly what it says. It's doing sibling count. Now, let's start with where I started, which was on MDN. So here at the top it says the sibling count CSS function returns an integer representing the total number of direct child DOM elements of the parent element on which it is used. So the way I read that is you put the sibling count on the UL, and then it'll return an integer that is the total number of direct child DOM elements. That's how I read it. That is not accurate, but that's how I read it. Now, again, Tamani linked me and a follow-up one here to the specification. Oh, that's not it. Here we go. The specification. It's a little clearer, but not that much. But let's go through this one. So this one says, the sibling count functional notation represents as an integer the total number of child elements in the parent of the element on which the notation is used. So that is a very nuanced difference, but very important. So the total number of child elements in the parent of the element on which the notation is used. Right. So here is what's actually happening. Let me think how to walk into this first. Okay, let me jump into here. So this is the example from the previous video, but here it still only has what I had before, track size, But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go on the container. So this is our UL, and I'm going to say here sibling. Oops, that's not sibling. Siblings. Let's just use siblings. Oh, let's just do count. Let's do count. And then I'm going to put here sibling count. Right? So now, if we look in the dev tools over here and we hover over there, it's 2. I hope you can see. I'll zoom in with the video editing thing. So it says 2. Now, first of all, you might say 2, but there's only one UL. Well, it's not scoping it to only unordered list elements, right? It's counting siblings. So what does this mean? Well, if we go back to the here to the specification, it says the total number of child elements in the parent of the element on which it is used. So the element on which it is used is the UL, the parent is the body. So there's also the script element. So that's why there's 2. Okay. So if we move this down, so if we go down here and we do, so on the ally, right? And now we go onto one of these allies and we hover over here, it's 5. Because it is the number of child elements in the parent of the element on which the notation is used. So this is the element on which it is used. This is the parent. So sibling count will now be children. And again, siblings, right? As you would expect. So if we go and we use a bit of a very crude drawing that I made in Excalibur, then essentially what's happening here is we have our parent. So this is our UL. And then we have our 5 list items. And we have Miss Browser over here. And on one of our list items, we have this custom property called siblings. And it stores the value of sibling count. And then what Miss Browser does is she goes up to Mr. Parent and says, hey, how many siblings does this child have? You know, she's pointing at this first one over here. And then Mr. Parent says, well, they have 4, of course. Because remember, child 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4 siblings. But in total, that obviously then makes up 5 children. So we end up with 5 in our sibling. But if you forget about the whole idea from parent-child and we just look at this and we say, here is Johnny, and Johnny has 4 siblings. So if we include Johnny, then we have 5 siblings. So that's essentially what's happening. So we use sibling count not on the UL, we use it on the list item. And then the browser will ask the parent, count your children. But by counting the children, it is telling you how many total siblings there are. Like I said, it's still a little confusing, but once you use it, as Tamani also said, once you use it, you get it. And I think maybe the code explains it the best, right? Even better than my crude drawing there. So essentially here we can see it says 5 because this is the element on which it is used. We're using it on the list item. And if we one more time go back, the total number of child elements in the parent. So parent, total number of child elements of the element on which the notation is used. So, yeah. So if we had a child count, then it would make sense to use it on the UL. Because then you would tell the UL, what is your child count? And then it would tell you, well, it's this number of children. So I hope this demystifies a little bit. If you have any additional questions around this, please let me know in the comments, or as per usual, you can contact me on LinkedIn or on Mastodon or on Blue Sky, and I'll try and explain further. I'm still also experimenting with this more. I figured out a pretty nice use case for it, but I'm going to not extend this video any longer, and I'll make that video probably tomorrow and release it there. A quick sneak peek here. It involves min column, max column, grid column count, and all kinds of grid column, blah, blah, blah. Fun stuff. And here you can see I'm using the sibling count right on the list item and not on the parent container. But I'll get into all the details of that in the next video. For this one, I wanted to clear up some of the things from the previous video. And I'll link up all the things I mentioned in the description. And I hope that this demystifies this for you a little bit. But again, if you have any questions, let me know. If you like this kind of content, you want more of this, please hit the subscribe button. If you like the content, give me a thumbs up so I know I'm giving you what you are interested in. And as per usual, have fun out there, make great stuff for the web. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.